very divided between players as to whether going first or second is correct, but this acts. As we get things started in true mirror match fashion, we have a mirror match of Mew EXs as well. But you mentioned it, right? All those resources being prized for Cali, they're going to be very good when you unlock them, but it's also going to take a little bit. And that Radiant Charizard can be very crucial to offset the prize raise and force your opponent to not be able to win a game by only taking one prize card while threatening to KO. Not having access to your one copy of Prime Catcher is going to be so crucial as well. So we'll have to see how Cali navigates this, or if Calvin can take this advantage that has been provided to him just in the setup of the game, right? We don't know how the game's going to work out, but just based on the prizes, I would give a slight advantage to Calvin right now.
So as many players do, of course, on this first deck search, checking through, seeing what cards are available, what Pokemon and energy cards are in the prizes. We'll, of course, note that Pheasantipity, for the time being, is unavailable, locked away in its cage in the prize cards. And as per this deck, you know, wanting to get down those basic Pokemon, Teal Mask, Ogerpon, and Regidrago, a match made in heaven. And you know, there are a lot of crucial pieces immediately in this hand. Of course, going first, Cal cannot play a supporter card, does potentially have the ability to maybe grab a different Pokemon here, and I think I like this more, right? You do have Ultra Ball in your hand, you do have the Teal Mask Ogerpon, but there's only one energy card, and it can't really be using this Ultra Ball for Squawkabilly since you're going to lose out on a lot of those resources.
We have seen players just go for it as well, right? I mean, you have your Legacy Star, you can recycle that Prime Catcher, but as you mentioned, that would be a big loss. It would be, I guess, a little better if you could not only Squawk and Seize, but also motivate some of the energies back to get powered up. I feel like that's something that we've seen be very effective so far. But yeah, I mean, I think we're going to take it slow, just get our attachment. You know you're under no threat in terms of getting KO'd. And then you have the Prime Catcher to chase down whatever Cali has down, maybe even try to go for a Gudra KO on the Mew in case that retreats into the Cleffa. I mean, that's what you're thinking as Calvin, but we know that that Cleffa is not available.
Yeah, so that will really come down to what Pokemon is in the active spot on the following turn. Could completely shift, you know, how players expect to play this matchup. A lot of the times it's just two Cleffas looking up at the sky and drawing cards over and over again until one player is able to find that combination. So it will be the Regidrago V onto the bench. Cal will shuffle that deck up, and makes me think we're just going to see, you know, a simpler turn on this first turn, but this is a matchup about patience and resources. Just because you can play cards down, just because you can use Squawkabilly, just because you can dig through your deck and draw, does not mean it's necessarily the best play. Nobody else besides Connor here, you know, really a seasoned player, would I expect less from him to know what route to take in this matchup.
I mean, we've given so much praise to Legacy Star, right? But it does come at a hefty cost of 7 cards in your deck, and that can prove costly as the game is running down if you don't have all the pieces yet. So yeah, the timing, knowing when to really go for it versus trying to be a bit more conservative, that is a very fine line to walk through, and this is what these players do perfectly. Now, on to Cali, gonna go for the Nest Ball and gonna find out the bad news.
And this is really where, you know, what separates good players from great players is how well you learn to divert your strategy when you can't follow that textbook opening. And on that note, Pablo, if you were in Cali's shoes here, you saw that your Cleffa was prized, you saw Radiant Charizard is prized, what would be a, you know, substantial or subsequent route you could go for to feel like you're still in a good spot in this matchup? You may give up 2 prizes, but you could still have a good route to win.
Yeah, both Pokemon are, of course, important. I wouldn't say they're super crucial. I would definitely put a lot more value on those energy switches and the Prime Catcher, which are not necessarily the first thing you check for, right? You will check for Pokemon, you check for energy. I think now we're taking a look, trying to find those other key pieces. But I think part of you wants to probably go aggressive to try to unlock some of those resources, but with 2 energy switches priced, you really need to prioritize getting energy attachments down. And this is where, once again, that Motivate could prove to be crucial if necessary. It definitely compensates for the 2 energy switches being priced. You are susceptible to a boss KO on your Regidrago, of course, but it might be a risk you have to take depending on the rest of your hand.
So we'll see 2 Nest Ball grab that pair, of course, Teal Mask Ogerpon. And Reggie Drago does have the grass energy from hand additionally. And now the question is, are we going to see something like a research? And we'll see research. And sure, it gets rid of the switch. Iono's not a card you love seeing hit the discard pile, but does discard a lot of those crucial dragon type Pokemon. We see Gudra and Giratina hit the discard pile.
Now, we have talked about this being a mirror match, but there are still some differences between these players' deck lists. Calvin is playing 2 copies of Iono versus Kali's 3, which could prove to be important as the match dwindles down and they both try to disrupt each other. Calvin is playing a Alolan Executor EX, which could prove to be an option for Calvin if he doesn't have a gusting effect and is facing down a Regidrago that copied Rolling Iron that still opens up a pathway to take 2 prizes if you flip tails with the attack, which Cali doesn't have access to. So those subtle differences could prove to be match determining when both players are so evenly matched in terms of skill.
And this 7 cards here from Research really not granting much at all, just a lot of energy cards, and I'm not even sure there's a way to continue digging through with something like Squawkabilly.
Your switch is down as well, so do you retreat into the Regidrago, hoping it will survive? Do you risk the other Regidrago, knowing that you might not be able to attack? Do you get the other 2 prizes? Do you essentially give your opponent 2 prizes? That's what we're seeing here.
It is a tough decision. It's just going to be leaving the Mew active and passing the turnover. And, you know, this opens up a big door here for Calvin. Rolling Iron would be an excellent way to knock this Mew out and provide some protection. We even see the Alolan Executor hit the discard pile. That's a card, you know, based off a coin flip could completely change, you know, how this game is played out. Calvin, though, immediately understands the importance of that Hisuian Gudra and will use the Ultra Ball to grab it, hinting at it potentially hitting the discard pile very shortly.
Gudra super key, but we're still missing quite a few pieces here for Calvin, right? Does have the Redraw V-Star in hand, does have the research, even has a Prime Catcher to potentially get some damage onto this Regidrago if he wants to. But the real question here is, can he find an Ogerpon, another Grass, and a Fire Energy, and an Energy Switch as well off of this research? That's a lot of cards you need.
It is a lot indeed, and, you know, it does make me think here, potentially, you know, there was a world where if you foresaw going into this Prime Catcher, you could have actually retreated into the Regidrago the turn before, used the Prime Catcher into Mew, and then had that flexibility to retreat into different Pokemon. Instead, Prime Catcher's just going to hit the discard pile. We're going to see 7 fresh new cards at this point, and does find a few good things to work with. There's Nest Ball plus Energy Switch. That's piece number 1.
Yep.
But there's no Fire Energy, so now Calvin has to kind of think about how aggressive he wants to play in a circumstance like this. You do have Ultra Ball, so you could, of course, guaranteed grab another Pokemon, so we'll most likely still see that Teal Mask be the selection here. But assuming this Teal Dance does not grant the perfect card, which would be, you know, a Fire Energy in this place, what is Calvin going to do as a backup plan? That's going to be the big question.
That's the big question. Do you commit your Legacy Star just to get these first 2 prizes with no backup Regidrago? That doesn't seem like a great plan. Do you Ultra Ball for Cleffa perhaps? Take a more chill turn, if you will, to just power up and try to keep safe on the bench. You did see Cali hesitate in who to promote, so likely expecting to, like, I don't know, half the Regidrago Vista ready. We see another Energy Switch, but that's not the Fire Energy that Calvin needs.
Another Energy Switch, and now really just comes the question of where do you want to commit the energy for the turn? Usually it's not great to, you know, put all your eggs in one basket in this match, put 3 energy on the Regidrago V-Star because it gives your opponent even more incentive, right, to chase after not just the attacking threat, but the Pokemon that holds all the energy cards and is almost ready to be powered up. And Calvin looks like he's going to be trying to go essentially all in at this spot. Does still have access to that restart ability. Let's not forget a big way for him to fill the hand back up. We could potentially see all these Energy Switch get played and then a big restart for 3 to try and find just that 1 Fire Energy.
Yeah, both Energy Switches could be played. That would be a big investment though, right? That would be, one of them would be wasted, but you would be drawing 3 cards. Of course, we could see a Fire Energy or the Earthen Vessel right here, and we see the Earthen Vessel off the top from that Teal Dance. Now, it will come at a cost of the Energy Switch, or you play that first, draw 1 with restart, and whatever it is will probably be less valuable than this Energy Switch. Or you commit the Energy Switch and then draw 3 cards with restart. That's a difficult decision, and we can see Calvin going into the tank, trying to figure it out.
It's just difficult because you have no guarantee of what this next card is going to be,
Yeah.
right? So you kind of have to ask yourself, is it worth just
Ooh.
burning this card to draw 2? I'm not sure it is necessarily. I don't necessarily know if there's a card that's better than this to go ahead and get rid of. We're going to see the restart for 2. I'm very interested to see what this first card is. It would have been a nest ball, but the research is a very nice card to have. So, you know, it works out in Calvin's favor in this spot. You know, like there definitely were 3 routes you could have taken. Definitely better to, you know, play the first energy switch and then use restart. And at minimum, we will be able to see Rolling Iron take the first 2 knockouts and grant this Regidrago V-Star some protection against future attacks.
Now this does leave Calvin open to a Prime Catcher boss knockout on the only Regidrago, but that Prime Catcher is prized. So Cali doesn't have that option as much as he would like it to have there.
So we will see Rolling Iron, the attack of choice, knocking Mew EX out. Calvin striking first and in a great way, thanks to that Rolling Iron, taking the first 2 prize cards. And like you mentioned, Pablo, with all of these crucial resources being prized, the 2 energy switch and that Prime Catcher, it's still even an ask not just about what Pokemon is going to be knocked out, but if there's an attack that's going to be able to be put together this turn, especially without using that V-Star power.
I want to talk a little bit about this energy on the Mew EX. That, in the long run, could prove to be useful as you can genome hacking your opponent's Apex Dragon attack and then copy your own Giratina or something along those lines to potentially take another crucial knockout. So it might have seemed like a waste, but it's actually a pretty decent resource to have right there.
And a big research there, getting rid of a lot of Earthen Vessel and Grass Energy hitting the discard pile. And I don't actually know if there's an energy switch in this hand. No, I think it's just a regular switch. Super Rod. You do have one more Teal Dance ability. And I believe there could potentially be an Ultra Ball in the hand as well. So this turn is far from over yet, right? We have not seen Flip the Script be used yet. We're going to see an additional card drawn as 1 from this Teal Dance. It's just the Canceling Cologne. So this may be a big
I think I see the energy switch. I think it's the very last card.
Is it the energy? Oh, it might be the energy switch.
It's that hard gold soul silver energy switch. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. All right, now I did make a mistake. Both players do have access to a Alolan Executor EX, so this is almost a 60 card mirror match. I think there's 3 Iono versus 2 Iono, and then there might be an extra stadium over on Calvin's side. But both players know or have almost the exact same resources to attack each other, pretty much. So that Fezandipity gonna be pretty good to get more resources. You already have plenty of liabilities on the bench, so you don't mind having that already. But is the Giratina in the discard pile? I don't remember seeing it there.
Well, at this point, Giratina can't knock out this direct active Regidrago, so it becomes sort of, you know, an interesting situation of, do you just start rolling ironing your opponent back and forth? I mean, with 1 rolling iron, damage rather on one of these Pokemon, Lost Impact can follow it up the following turn to take a knockout. But then the rolling iron on the opposite side takes the knockout, and you see, Pablo, how things can really start to spiral out of control, and this matchup can really get crazy once we get into the thick of things.
And with the V-Star still available, the Prime Catcher right here, can Calvin just like aggro into this and just take two more prizes each turn with a Boss's Orders or a Prime Catcher, or establish another Regidrago? I feel like that could be a quick and easy route to victory here.
We'll see Super Rod get played, and now the big question here for Cali, what are the attacking options in the discard pile? You know, at this point, if Gudra's in there, that's probably more than okay in this spot. You get to save your V-Star, set up a play where, you know, you put pressure on your opponent to either use their V-Star power, not something that's great to do, and that is the situation. So we're just going to see Rolling Iron do 120 damage thanks to the 80 reduction from that attack. So, you know, it's going to take a little bit more Rolling Iron action to finish off one of these Pokemon. However, Calvin can take this turn now to, with his active Regidrago V-Star, breathe a sigh of relief and potentially pivot into either another one of these V-Star Pokemon or something like the Radiant Charizard to close this game out later on.
Yeah, I think that Radiant Charizard is an indication that Calvin likely goes for the Prime Catcher and just try to KO anything else on the bench. Bypass that Rolling Iron, can't Boss's Orders anymore, of course. But if you have enough energy switches, we did get plenty of energy access. We have Nest Ball to establish a backup Regidrago as well. We have the space. We could also establish the Serendipity preemptively just to try to set up the win with this Radiant Charizard. Plenty of options here for Calvin, definitely in the price lead and also the game lead, I would say.
Yeah, that could actually come back to bite Calvin. Let's not forget that Serendipity at the top of the prize cards for him. So, will not have as much protection as he'd like later on in the game. Iona to 2 feels like you're not really doing anything to your opponent when they refill their hand with Restart to 3, draw another 3 cards off Serendipity, and then that's before they've used their supporter or Teal Dance abilities. So now Calvin's got to think to himself, what does he want to commit to this last bench space? I mean, Pablo, is there ever a world, especially if you're going to pop V-Star this turn, where you're attacking with a Regidrago V-Star again during the course of the line? Or do you really just lean into this Charizard that's already in play? It's kind of a tough decision.
It's definitely a tough decision. Of course, Charizard can't take down an opposing Regidrago V-Star that didn't use Rolling Iron. It would need 3 prior damage counters in order to do that. So, yeah, Radiant Charizard's good, but it does require a ghosting effect to be able to finish off something. So I think we're going to see, yep, that Regidrago V makes sense. Some energies dedicated to that. You have such a price advantage right here that as long as you, once you're ahead, as long as you stay ahead, that's good enough, right? So maybe you don't commit your V-Star yet. You're happy to Rolling Iron, then you get KO'd. You're tied at 4, then you knock them out. And also, by your opponent taking prizes, attacking with Radiant Charizard becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, this will really be the interesting decision here of how much credit does Calvin give Cali in this spot on having something like a gusting card to take a knockout, or, using that lost impact attack to take the knockout, but essentially open the door wide open for Calvin to respond with a Rolling Iron to take the knockout in response. And maybe this is just the play here, Pablo, of, whoever saves their V-Star for the longest while being in the prize lead is the favorite in a matchup like this. And there's always that risk that we talk about. You discard the top 7, but how likely is it that, one of your last 2 energy switch are in there, and now all of a sudden, you're not going to be able to string an attack back together, and it's just going to be what potentially looks like another Rolling Iron, just asking how many cards are in the hand, thinking about all the options, and yes, it is Rolling Iron on Rolling Iron. Buckle up. We're going rolling. We're going bowling.
We are indeed. Not the most aggressive Pokemon here. Both players respecting each other a lot. Both players still have their V-Star, but it's on Cali to make something happen. They are the one that are behind, right? They need to formulate a plan to catch up. Probably involves Radiant Charizard somewhere down the line to try to offset the price trade, but now another Rolling Iron is not good enough. We need to see a lost impact if we are going to find a 2-price knockout here.
That last card in hand for Cali is Boss's Orders, however, so this does bring up an interesting situation. Boss's Orders could target something like the Mew EX down on the bench, and then from there it kind of creates that dynamic before where, yes, you do open your opponent up to using Lost Impact to knock you out, but then in response, you can use Rolling Iron as a response to knock it out and protect yourself. So this could, again, be this dynamic of holding on to V-Star as long as possible. We'll see what Cali decides to do in this spot.
As the game goes on, though, if Calvin remains in the lead, then holding off that V-Star to just find Ghost Effect KO with Radiant Charizard is going to be a pretty big deal. I feel like right now, just taking down your opponent's resources, see if they can actually build up to another Regidrago V-Star. Maybe they need to use their V-Star to actually get that powered up. That might be a way to get the V-Star advantage that they need.
So this will be a big deal here. I mean, Calvin, if he can put together this attack, like you mentioned, Rolling Iron to knock out this Regidrago without using V-Star, then that is going to be a huge dynamic shift. And look at this hand here for Calvin. If he wants to dig through his deck, this is the hand to do it with. Earthen Vessel, Super Rod to bring back these energies, even the V-Star that has hit the discard pile, and that Professor's Research. Calvin's going to be able to see a lot of cards this turn.
Only 1 energy switch has been used. Oh no, there's 2. 2
different arts.
Yeah.
Come on, why are we playing different arts in 2024? 2025, we're playing the same artworks for every card. That's the New Year's resolution.
Now we're going ahead and super rodding before using Teal Dance. So diminishing the odds a little bit in order to draw the energy switches that are left in the deck. We're going to put some energies into the deck. Then we're going to probably get them out with that Earthen Vessel.
Potentially, oh, the V-Star, very interesting choice. Not going to put back, oh, there's the third V-Star.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, right on. So we're going to put these energies back. And yeah, talk a little bit, Pablo, about some of the sequencing here, putting the energies back. I mean, there's good and there's bad, but, you know, we are looking for the energy switch.
Yeah, you're not looking to draw energies right now. Of course, you're looking for that Regidrago V-Star, but putting that back after you've drawn a couple cards with the teal dances to have maximum chances, right? Like, there aren't that many cards left in the deck, but there are a significant amount to where 1, 2, or 3 extra cards significantly reduce your chances of finding one of those 2 copies with the teal lenses and with the research.
So big draws here for Calvin's got maybe about 20 or so cards left in the deck here, especially after that Super Rod. We're going to see the teal dance to start things off, so not even playing the Earthen Vessel. Does find Cleffa, not a great card, but it's not a detrimental resource, and here we may just see Calvin play this Earthen Vessel, grab out 2 of those grass energy. He'll have that attachment for turn. And then as well, he could also have 1 more choice of attackers to use in a spot like this. Let's see how many energies are left in the deck. There's actually only, looks like 2
that
grass.
were put back.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So the 2 grass put back. I mean, there is a world, Pablo, you know, where you could actually just use the Mew EX to attack instead.
I was about to touch on that exactly. I think the dream scenario is use Mew EX to copy your opponent's Apex Dragon, knock them out with Rolling Iron whilst having the Regidrago V-Star right here sitting pretty safe. So then if they go Ghost KO Regidrago V-Star, Mew is ready to copy Lost Impact, win the game. And if they knock out Mew, you still have your V-Star to just get back that Prime Catcher, knock out whatever it is on the bench that you need to. So almost creating checkmate, but we do need to find 1 energy switch and commit the energy to the Mew to make this happen. And an energy, I guess, off of this research.
I don't actually know if any energies were found there off that Earthen Vessel.
No, it was failed, yeah.
We're just playing Professor's Research. Do we see the energy switch?
Nope.
Oh, it is!
Oh, it's all those arts.
Another different art of the energy switch. I'm having to play catch up and check things out at this point. And yes, here we go.
There we go.
Committing the fire energy. One of the flexible things about genome hacking is it requires 3 colorless energy, 3 of any type of energy. Mix and match it however you'd like. Calvin's got it going. We'll be able to see the Rolling Iron be copied, knocking out Regidrago V-Star. Calvin's now just double checking to say, where's my Rolling Iron at? There it is.
This card pile is so all over the place that he couldn't find that Kudra in between the cards. But we're going to see the Rolling Iron. We're going to see the knockout 200 damage after Lost Impact was used the previous turn. And this, as we mentioned, sort of creates checkmate. You can either V-Star for whatever missing piece you need, or your V-Star goes down and Mew is already ready to go to copy that Regidrago V-Star and win the game with a Lost Impact. Is the guillotine in the discard pile, though? I can't really see it over
here. It is. It's right at the bottom next to the Earthen Vessel. You see it? We're playing, I Spy. Have you ever played I Spy before?
Yes, I have played I Spy.
It was Patty Cake yesterday. We got I Spy this time.
I Spy, we do know it.
All right. We're learning out here in multiple ways when it comes to TCG, and I think Cali has learned this game is unwinnable. Calvin has set checkmate up, and Cal Connor, somebody who has been so close to tasting victory in the Masters division, is now 1 game away from becoming a regional champion.
Incredible play here, and you can see how not using your V-Star, saving it until the last minute. I see so many Regidrago players on the ladder in casual play, immediately using their V-Star to get back that Prime Catcher that they discarded earlier, just so that they can take a 2-price knockout on a Regidrago as opposed to the Mew EX in the beginning. Saving your V-Star has so much merit. So let's take a look at what happened in this first game. All the crucial plays, that extra energy switch, moving the energy onto the Mew was so clutch. And then we saw back and forth of the Rolling Iron from both players, but the player who struck first ended up being the winner.
What a cool play. You know, it seemed like in the moment it was just playing the energy switch to thin it out of the hand so it wouldn't be a resource that was discarded, but it ended up working out well. The energy switch proved useful at that point. With the energy already on Mew EX, it was just a single attachment, an energy switch away, and saving the V-Star while being ahead. Pablo, that was the name of the game. Calvin Connor, 1 game away from tasting that regional championship victory.
Out of all the Regidrago mirrors we have seen so far, had we seen Mew EX attack at this point. And I don't think I had seen Mew EX attack before. It's always a good option to have, right? Not only in this deck, in many decks. Any deck that can run Mew has always that option, but you can see how clutch it can be.
So Cali has opted to go first, sticking with the strategy. This is what has been working for him the entire weekend. Has felt going first is the right play. You know, Caleb and everybody else, they've been going second in the matchup. Sticking with what's been working, that is a good strategy in the Pokemon TCG. Both players do have basic Pokemon, and we are ready to get into game number 2. Kicking things off, Teal Mask Ogerpon, always a nice Pokemon to start. Of course, you do want it down for that Teal Dance ability, but having one retreat does give you that flexible option of potentially easily retreating and pivoting into a Pokemon like Cleffa.
Teal Dance, such a good ability. Now I'm taking a look at the prices for both players. Nothing too impactful over on Cali's side, one energy switch, but yes, the Goodra V-Star over on Calvin. We saw how important that Goodra V-Star is for both players, and now Calvin will need to figure out a way to win without protecting through Rolling Iron, which means a lot more aggression coming from him.
We'll see what he has in terms of cards in hand. Looks like already having energy, but prioritizing using Earthen Vessel mainly just to get this Giratina V-Star in the discard pile. Will do so. Also being able to check through the deck will get the bad news, of course, that Hisuian Goodra V-Star is in the prizes, and we'll potentially immediately see right from this choice here, Pablo, how that shifts him building his board up and selecting which Pokemon he wants to put into play.
Yep, not having access to Rolling Iron to play more defensively will force him to be a lot more aggressive, maybe Lost Impact earlier, maybe even copy Alolan Executor at some point in order to get himself a 2-price knockout on resources to try to unlock that Goodra. But with it being at the very top, I have a feeling he's going to have to play the whole game without it.
And you see him, nodding his head there saying, all right, I see how things are. You want me to work for this win? I'm going to have to think a little bit outside the box, not have to rely off, my good old friend Goodra. You see immediately that it was probably a good decision now that he decided to, not play something like Iono immediately from the hand and instead get this Giratina V-Star in the discard pile. Just going to check and make sure everything else that he needs is there. Of course, Prime Catcher, those Energy Switch, a bunch of other resources, they will be available for the time being.
Yeah, Super Rod being prized can be important as well, especially if the Legacy Star at some point uses or discards that, or if our research gets rid of that a little bit earlier in the match. But you can definitely play around that. You cannot play around just not having access to one of your main attacks. And this is one of the things that make Regidrago so good, but also it's a risk you have to take, right? You have all these versatile attacks at your disposal, but 10% of the time, you're not going to have access to at least one of those.
So there's the attachment for turn, and now the question is, what are we going to see get played? Deciding to play this research over Iono, deciding that energy switch was not worth preserving. What do you think about that, Pablo?
I think you have to, like Iono is a little underwhelming. You don't know exactly what's in your opponent's hand, but getting the attackers in the discard pile, seeing an extra card, one extra card can be so significant, right? How many championships have we seen be won or lost by a single card? Now, this Super Rod considered being discarded could prove to be costly, with the other one being prized. And Calvin, I don't think he was as thorough with the price checking. He checked for Pokemon, checked for energy, but these sort of things, like, I think very few people would check for the Super Rods being priced.
Yeah. And in this spot, I mean, with how the hand looks, Calvin may have to get rid of the Super Rod either way next turn. There was research, and that was pretty much all that was going for him. So, he'll be able to get out a second Regidrago V, and, that's really the nice thing to have in this case. Because, of course, if your only Regidrago V gets knocked out, you got to ask yourself, what are you threatening on the following turn without access to what is considered and what is your main attacker?
Now, we did see Mew EX be a featured card in the previous game, but this time around it hit the discard pile quite early. And of course, Mew EX is fantastic. It can attack. If you start it, you'll use it, but it's also a liability. It can be knocked out by Rolling Iron. It can be knocked out by Phantom Dive as well, and that can be a problem. So choosing to not have this liability.
All right, we'll just make sure everything is good as we work through things. Action back on Cali. Did kick things off fairly well. Of course, getting that Regidrago V down, as well as an energy attachment. And now looking to use that Teal Dance ability, so drawing into cards, I'm actually not sure there's something like a supporter in the hand. Looks like there is that Professor's Research, and a nice one-card draw there from that Teal Dance. Finds Ultra Ball, and that will start to potentially get some of these Dragon Pokemon from the deck into the hand, which from there can be discarded in various ways.
The previous game, we gave an advantage to Calvin just based on Cali's prize cards. I think Cali now has that advantage himself. There's Gudra not available for Calvin. There's no Super Odds anymore available for Calvin until he decides to Legacy Star and perhaps choose one of those. So based on the resources available, Cali, as long as they can get an attack this turn, I would say they have a pretty big advantage.
And now the question comes, what do you discard off Ultra Ball? And it will be two of those Earthen Vessel cards you'd love to have later on in the game, but for what it's worth, it's just a situation where you're going to play every other card out, so no reason to play cards or rather keep them if they're going to be discarded. We'll do the same thing, double check exactly what's happening with the deck, what cards are available. We'll, quickly make note of things like that Radiant Charizard, the Grass Energy. Those are easier cards to note, but this is really an important thing as a player that you're checking some of those, not as noticeable cards. Energy Switch is a big one because how you make plays completely depends on how many are in your deck, of course, as well as those that you played in your discard pile.
Yep, Energy Switch, the keyest card of the whole deck. The reason why this deck functions perfectly is because of that Energy Switch, combined with many other stuff, right? But Energy Switch is the core card of this deck. When you prize too many, when you discard too many, it can be a little bit difficult to even get an attack of. But seems like Cali is going to go on the aggressive side. We see the Lost Impact Giratina being chosen. We're not going to go Rolling Iron this time. We're going to get ahead first with that Lost Impact, potentially, if we find the right combination of cards of Research, which could give Calvin an opening, right? Because Cali doesn't know that there's no Gudra right now available for Calvin.
So here we go, Research. No energy committed yet for turn. We've seen the Teal Dance. Where are those Energy Switch? That is the big question. There it is, that's Energy Switch. Is there an energy, though? I don't see any, and you can tell losing those two Earthen Vessel early on may have been a little bit of a costly factor there for Cali, and that was really what they were debating in that spot. Keeping this Regidrago V or keeping something like the Earthen Vessel in the hand, and that could have potentially been a difference maker in the spot.
And many times, like, you play 7 energies, right? 7 grass and the 4 Earthen Vessel, so finding one more doesn't seem like a challenge, but turns out it's not going to be able to attack this turn unless we Legacy Star, and we know how crucial it is to keep that available. We are going to commit another Energy Switch, hits the discard pile, an Earthen Vessel, Kyurem available now, a Rage Harvester, so not the worst, but that Energy Switch could prove to be pivotal as the other one, as the fourth one is priced.
So now the question is, what do you grab? Number one for sure is this Earthen Vessel. That's pretty standard.
The whole reason you did this.
Absolutely. But then the second question is, what do you get back? And Pablo, I feel like it's got to be one of those Energy Switch for sure. It's just too crucial of a resource to miss out on.
I would agree. Energy Switch, just super, super important, especially if you're going to Lost Impact. You're going to have to get rid of some energies from this Regidrago, so you're going to need to repower up next turn if it's still alive, right? So we do need to make sure that we can repower up, whether it's that Regidrago or the follow-up one.
So there's the Earthen Vessel, Squawk ability, no longer needed. Of course, Squawk and Seize does only work on that first turn, and 2 Grass Energy will be the choice. And a nice find there for Cali. Did find another one of those Teal Mask Ogre Pawns, so we'll be able to, put one more energy into play, retreat, and then Lost Impact will not be as detrimental, in terms of energies on board and not having to take too many off this Regidrago V-Star potentially.
Or do you, though? Because if you Lost Impact, then you leave yourself open to that Lost Impact, right? We've talked about how if you're very aggressive, you also leave yourself open. They've dedicated so many resources to powering up this Regidrago. They've even invested the V-Star. However, if Calvin responds, can you really power up another Regidrago V-Star immediately to respond without your V-Star? It seems like a daunting task.
It would definitely require a V-Star power to be used, and maybe Cali's okay with that in this spot, saying, look, you can knock me out in return.
We were about to draw cards from the deck instead of take prizes. No.
It is a bit weird, right, when players have their deck and prizes on the same side, so can't fault Cali at all for a situation like that. But here we go. Action back on Cal Connor. if he can find this knockout, especially if he draws to a good set of cards without having to use that V-Star power, then, that impact factor of Gutra V-Star being away in the prizes could slowly start to be less and less impactful. The name of the game again, saying it over and over again. I may sound like a broken record, but it's for a good reason. Saving Legacy Star, a huge key in this matchup.
Cali also hoping that Calvin will not be able to find this KO. Not committing the energies from, committing the energies to the active, just getting rid of all the energies from that benched Ogre Pawn. And now a huge research here, Ethan.
7 cards. Cal needs to find a lot. Let's see what he has. Double energy switch. That's good, but there's no energy in this hand. However, how things stand at this point is a single earthen vessel will give Cal all he needs to take this knockout, meaning that he can grab the guaranteed earthen vessel and then another card of his choosing if he'd like. Could even make a play where, he plays. Whoa! All right, we're out here shaking. Did Executor just come in here? Did he bump his head into the camera by accident?
Probably. See the Executor just doing its thing. Now, all right, so yeah, Calvin has this knockout, and now Cali has one energy switch available, right? But can they find the last copy? There's two. There's one in discard, has the other one in hand. There's one left in the deck because one is prized. That Legacy Star did discard like nothing too impactful, I want to say.
Yeah, just the superior energy retrieval, and it looks like that may actually be the choice here for Cal just to get back these 2 energy. It's essentially the earthen vessel. You just discard one more card instead.
That's fine.
And now the question that I was sort of asking myself in this spot is, if I was Cal, I probably would have just used this energy switch before using Legacy Star. That way, if you're in a circumstance here where there's not any, standout cards to grab, at least you get an energy switch back. So, don't count my words yet. It's still early in the game, but those could be the little decisions that could make or break late game decisions. Super Rod's still a very good card, though.
Yeah, there is an energy switch already in the discard pile from that very first turn. So I guess it was okay not to do that. Getting back Super is also important with the other one being prized. Maybe Carl does know this at this point in time. So getting back resources to get back resources after you've used Legacy Star makes a lot of sense. Definitely not an easy decision. So,
no.
Having a difficult time figuring out. I mean, there's merit to Serendipity as well. The energy switch is so crucial. So many options here.
Yeah, it really is a weird situation because I feel like a lot of what's going to happen in this game will come down to, the next turn here for Cali. If we just get into a lost impact war where these players are going back and forth on attacking, you're going to need to have those energy switch, but you're also going to need to have the Super Rod to recover resources. So then the question becomes, how much can you afford to do, and can you set your deck up so that if you need to take a turn off, for example, to make a questionable play, something like Cleffa to Grasping Draw and fill the hand back up, some Hail Mary play like a Motivate to maybe get some more energy into play. What resources are going to provide you the most amount of flexibility? And it looks like did decide to take the Super Rod, and here it is, double energy switch and the fire energy for turn. Lost impact, I'm going to do that right back at you. 280 damage, and after that huge turn from Cali, investing the V-Star power, using Lost Impact, taking the big knockout, Calvin has done essentially the exact same thing and has put the pressure right back on Cali to find a response.
Yeah, and finding that response could prove to be very difficult. Of course, we have research, I think, in hand. We have Serendipity to flip the script, draw an extra 3 cards, but the key card missing is energy switch. And can we even make use of the energy switch that's in hand currently? Is there a grass energy to teal dance onto the teal mask and then use that energy switch? Because if there isn't, that would be really, really bad. There
is a grass energy, and let's not forget flip the script is always a potential option. So we'll see the first card drawn. It's another grass energy. Okay, continue the train, draw and draw. And there's an Iono at this point, but while Disruption is very solid, I feel like in this spot, goal number 1 has got to just be seeing as many cards as possible this turn.
No. Cali does have the same information as Calvin, right? Like, there are 3 energy switches in Calvin's discard pile. So if Calvin wants to attack next turn, they do need to find their last energy switch to attach to that Regidrago. And there is a possibility that if Cali finds this knockout, finds that last energy switch, Calvin would not be able to attack next turn with a Regidrago. Could attack with Radiant Charizard, but that's not enough to knock out Regidrago V-Stars. We see a big research here. No energy switch found just yet. That fourth one is prized. There's exactly one left in the deck. Can flip the script. Pull through.
We could see a little bit of deck thinning at this point. There is an Ultra Ball in the hand. We're down to probably about 25 or so cards left, so not great outs here, Pablo, especially when this Regidrago came up into the active spot to start this turn. It means, you know, at this position, if there is no other Regidrago benched and you miss this attack, you are leaving the door wide open for Calvin to just run away with things.
Now, it comes down to these crucial energy switches. Both players looking for their last one to make a big move. Cali looking through their deck, gonna nest ball for an extra card to try to see as many cards as possible. There's no grass energy, I don't think, left in the deck. I also don't think we can get down to enough cards to where Mew EX would be able to draw. Maybe we could have, but we're committed to the Ogre Pawn. And so this flip the script is going to be probably the biggest flip the script of Cali's Pokemon career so far.
There's probably about 15 or so cards in this deck. We're looking at, you know, about a 20% or so chance to find this energy switch at that. This is a big time ability usage. Fezandipity, if you believe in comebacks, you're going to find Cali an energy switch at this point. You see, thinking, is there anything else I could do? Big three cards. Do we see the energy switch? Not one, not two, and not three. Has Prime Catcher, but how useful would a card like Prime Catcher be in a situation where you're not applying attacking pressure and there's not really even a great Pokemon to bring up instead?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can play it defensively to bring up your Radiant Charizard to prevent a two-prize knockout, protect all the resources you've invested into this Regidrago V-Star as well. Or do you take a risk and just assume that your opponent will not find their energy switch? They didn't grab it from Legacy Star, which could give you the inkling that they already have it, or they were confident that they would not be getting knocked out. I don't know. That not grabbing the energy switch, even though Calvin evaded it, that gives you a little bit of information on what your opponent might be thinking.
It's a little suspicious, I can't lie.
Yeah.
So it seems like a card that you would almost always value, maybe making you think one or the other piece was prized. Is the Super Rod in the prizes? Is that why they're grabbing it? Or do they already have the energy switch in the hand? It's something that, you know, reading your opponent, not a huge skill in the Pokemon TCG, but it can be big in very specific opportune times. This is a time you maybe gotta, you know, dig into your mind a little bit and think, what is my opponent thinking in this spot and why are they making the decisions that they are? And just going to pass. Big opportunity here for Cal Connor. If he can find a grass energy to Teal Dance and a grass energy to attach for the turn, then he will be down to just 2 prize cards left and 1 knockout away potentially from becoming a regional champion.
Don't forget the energy switch though. The energy switch is the key. We need those 2 energies and we need the energy switch. Now that Cleffa, we do have the Prime Catcher. We could see another defensive play, like Calvin can only Iodo, so it's not perfect. Ooh. Yeah, I think this is the defensive play we're going to see. Calvin just not, like assuming they're not going to find the energy switch. Unless I'm mistaken, there's still 1 left, just not counting on finding all those pieces. Going to play defensively and try to figure out a game plan from here now. Prime Catcher has been exhausted over on Cali's side, I do believe.
No, it was actually still in the hand, chose not to play it. Right. It's now at the bottom of the deck though, Pablo.
Yeah, and the switch is prized, so getting that Radiant Charizard out of the active could prove to be very difficult and might buy Calvin enough time at this point.
And double checking, was there an extra card drawn? No, I think we're okay. We're going to see the Cleffa be used. I hate getting scared in those spots. We're in the finals. I want to see both these players play up to the rules. Good Pokemon. So far, we've seen exactly that. What does Cali have? I believe drew into boss's orders, but like you mentioned, Pablo, with the switch in the prize for Cali, the only way to get this Radiant Charizard out of the active as it stands would be that 1 copy of Prime Catcher, and he's going to have to use this Earthen Vessel to discard boss's orders just to not only grab these energies, but shuffle the deck so that the Prime Catcher is no longer on the bottom.
No longer on the bottom, but no guarantees it's going to be ever accessible. There aren't too many cards left, though. So perhaps our research can't get us there as long as it doesn't remain at the very bottom of the deck. This would give Cali a huge initiative. Now there's plenty of energy on the board. You can Lost Impact pretty freely, take down that Rage Drago V-Star, but if Calvin has another ghosting effect, bringing up that Radiant Charizard again could prove problematic because the switch will likely remain prized the whole game. And there it is!
The Prime Catcher.
Wow.
Huge grab. No need to research. It's already in the hand. And with a single attachment for turn to this Regidrago, you're all set. Got everything that you'd want in this situation. The bench is primed. There's the attachment for turn, and the Prime Catcher onto Regidrago V-Star. Cali seemed to be in some spots of trouble during those last turns, but Prime Catcher came in clutch and allows Cali to copy Lost Impact once more. Even going to follow things up with a Professor's Research, leaving them with just a single card left in deck. We'll see if there's another Gusting card, because that is the big question. And yes, does still have a Boss's Orders left, so plenty of resources to be able to close the game out as soon as the next turn, Pablo.
And with Super Rod and one Energy Source left, there might be just enough firepower to retreat the Radiant Charizard if that is promoted somehow next turn. So Cali just gonna go all in. Lost Impact here. Don't think you have the resources to be conservative anymore, so you just have to go for it. Calvin shouldn't be able to power up Rage Drago V-Star, so you know you have a free-ish turn. No help for Calvin off of that Cleffa, though. He didn't play Super Rod to get back Physantipity, I'm pretty sure. So he can't draw extra cards this turn. There's no Ghosting effect. Could just have to hope that the Cleffa gets him through and there's no more Ghosting effects for Cali.
Yeah, but, I mean, both players know at this point, as long as that Boss's Orders is not in Cali's last two prize cards, which we, of course, know it's not, then that Gusting card essentially is going to be there at some point.
Yeah.
And with the power of Physantipity to fill the hand back up, if you're ever taking a knockout, well, you're not going to be in a prime position to win this game. So we'll see Calvin just attach the Fire Energy to this Radiant Charizard. I don't even know if there's something like an Iono to disrupt the hand. You've got to assume that your opponent's going to have access to every single card next turn, and in that fact, by that being the case, we'll have Boss's Orders to win the game.
Plenty of good cards in Calvin's hand, but none of them very useful. Right, and now that Physantipity that was never shuffled into the deck just means there's no time for Calvin here to do anything. There isn't even a Mew EX. It was discarded early on, and I don't even know if there was a Ghosting effect left. There might have been one boss. I think that was the only out. Bring up the Radiant Charizard, hope your opponent can't retreat. But we do see the Grasping draw. We're going to see the boss, and we're going to see a Game 3.
Here we go, going the distance. Game 3 between our two competitors. It's coming down to the wire. Who will win this final match? Will it be Cali or will it be Calvin Connor? This is going to be exciting.
They're playing the same deck. They share the first 3 words in their name. It's a true mirror match here.
Couldn't get more identical than this. I 100% agree. Let's get into the highlights from that last game. This is what mirror matches are about. These back and forth tempo swings, where that game was completely different than the first one in terms of how the attackers of choice go, and that is sort of the tempo this game follows. If one player decides to, you know, get aggressive and go in heavy with this Giratina V-Star, you have to respond in kind. You really have to follow the tempo back and forth of the other player.
And then Cali whiffed their response, but then Calvin also whiffed the opportunity to take advantage of that after we saw the exchange of Regidrago against Regidrago, and then that one turn, right? Cali went first. Cali was the aggressor for the first time in this match, and that proved to be just enough. Calvin couldn't find any help off of that Iono and any help off of that Grasping draw, and those energy switches proved to be key.
So here we go. Both players will set up, draw 7 cards. We'll see who is going first or second in this case. That is a big deal and, you know, a big point of discussion between these competitors.
Yeah. I mean, if Calvin's confident he likes to go second, now he gets the choice. Cali likes to go first. No, it's going to be Calvin starting us off here with an absolutely horrible hand for energies, a Temple of Sinnoh, and an energy switch and a Gudra. Not what you want to see in the mirror match finals of Game 3.
Not at all, and both players also have 2 Teal Mask prized in this spot, and if you're Cali, I don't even know if the hand is that much better. There's an Iono.
But you don't want to do that.
But is there ever a world where you just hold the Iono in this spot and wait to next turn? No, it's going to play the Iono and bail Calvin out of what could have been a quick, swift, and sad Game 3.
Now, you already have an advantage, right? Just based on what Calvin did on the first game. And just because your opponent doesn't do anything on turn 1 doesn't mean they're not holding a research. Now it's Cali with the absolutely horrendous hand while Calvin has a nest ball. We need to see huge top decks here for Cali. I would have even liked perhaps to see both Earthen Vessels be used. Just get 4 energies out of your deck immediately and maximize your chances of top decking out of this horrible hand.
Yeah, Cali already having both energy switch, but there's a key piece missing. That Teal Mask Ogre Pawn, with there only being 1 in the deck for both players, it may be a little bit of a challenge to keep energies flowing in this mirror match. We are going to be in for, not necessarily a treat, but, maybe something a little bit sour for this last match.
I feel like game 1, we saw a pretty standard Rage Dragon mirror match, rolling iron to rolling iron into finding ghosting effects, playing around that, trying to out-research your opponent, conserving a V-Star. Games 2 and Game 3 are just all over the place. What are we watching, Ethan?
This is the Pokemon TCG. Whether you like it or not, this is what you're here for. So we're glad you're here. We're glad you're tuned in. Will be the fire and grass energy grabbed, but this is really going to come down to next turn. If you're Cali, you are dreading the fact that you may have to discard 2 of those energy switch for no usage, and you're also crossing your fingers that this Iono did not help out Calvin at all. Just going to pass the turn over. What does Calvin have on his side? Has an Ultra Ball, has Nest Ball, has a Research, but there are a lot of resources, and immediately you see potentially putting the Ultra Ball and the 2 bosses' orders to the front of the hand. Those are the worst kind of Ultra Balls to play, especially in what is the biggest game of both of these trainers' careers so far.
2 bosses' orders is just so sad. And Calvin also gonna find out the bad news that 2 Ogre Pawns are prized along with a Regidrago V. Is this the time for Squawk? I want to say motivate, even though obviously you can't use its ability. If you retreat into the Squawk, find an energy of your research, your Regidrago is ready to go. It does come at the cost of 2 prizes, but doesn't seem like that's what we're going to see. Gonna rely on the energy switches. Motivate's so good when you don't have Ogre Pawn. I would love to see that more here.
These trainers have a lot going through their head, I'm sure. The pressure, the intensity of the moment, the fact that, nothing is going according to script in this third game so far. We'll see Calvin grab this Giratina. That's honestly, we love it. I'm not sure our competitors love it in this spot, but, from a viewing perspective and from, an analytical perspective, these make the best kind of games, the ones where you truly can't predict exactly what's going to happen. There's the research, 7 more cards for Cal. What will he find? What will he put together in preparation for the next turn? Really looking for an Ogre Pod. What is that
Another dead hand. No draw, no supporters, no Nest Ball, no Ultra Ball, no Ogre Pawn. I mean, you do have your V-Star, right?
Big top deck finds an Ultra Ball.
That's huge. That will let Cali attack this turn. Has the perfect combination now. Will cost them the Regidrago V-Star. So hoping to find another one off of the research, but that is huge.
Gets to get use out of at least one of these energy switch, and there are still a few pieces missing, right? As you mentioned, the Regidrago V-Star, but let's not forget as well, an attacker for that Regidrago V-Star to copy. So it's not over quite yet, but look, at minimum, we could see a Dragon Laser this turn. It's not the greatest attack.
We are guaranteed.
But we could see the Dragon Laser. Look, you got to start somewhere. Cali definitely more than happy to see that Ultra Ball come from the top of the deck.
I mean, that with a colder head, I feel like I would have preferred to discard the Fire Energy. I know that's crucial. Oh my, never mind. Never mind. Regidrago V-Star off the top after you immediately discard it. That is huge.
But a big risk evolving here. Cali still needs to find a Pokemon to discard off of this. There's the Ultra Ball, but is there another Pokemon? No. No Pokemon to discard, nothing to copy. The main boss got powered up, but there's no friends to support him in the discard.
You absolutely have to commit your V-Star at this point in time. You have Switch in hand. If you discard Prime Catcher, you could Prime Catcher Switch KO your opponent's only Regidrago V-Star. You know they're struggling. We're going to see the Legacy Star. Energy switch. Oh, the Executor! The Executor!
And the Executor as well. And now Cali has to make a decision. Do you go for this Executor coin flip? The advantage being you don't have to lost zone these energies.
Exactly. It's always better than Lost Impact, right? You flip heads, you knock out Fezandipity. You flip tails, bye-bye Regidrago. And so how often do you root for tails here, Ethan?
It's a good situation either way, I feel, at this point. The big question, though, is what cards do you grab? We see the Ultra Ball as the first choice just to make sure there'll be another Regidrago V that comes down. But what a great Legacy Star, all things considered. Didn't get rid of too many resources and can now also get this Kyurem in the discard pile. Ultra Ball to find another piece. We may be seeing a big-time coin flip in this spot. First Ultra Ball to find Goodra, or potentially...
Or maybe I got a little too excited. I want to see the swinging speed, but maybe that's a little too aggressive at this point in time. I would really, really love to see it. Your opponent has nothing. You take down your opponent's Fezandipity. You know they don't have Ogerpon in their hand. Otherwise, it would have hit the field. I don't know. Would you risk it in this spot? I mean,
for $10,000, the biggest coin flip of your career.
It's gotta be a good, right? It's gotta be a rolling iron. No risk taken here by Cali, which there's a lot of merit to this, right? It's game 3. There's $10,000 on the line. You might want to be a little conservative, but does this give Cal an opening?
Did top deck the
switch? So they have nothing.
Yeah, but there is still the Legacy Star. There is a Legacy Star in the hand. But this is where Rolling Iron really comes into effect. As it stands right now, this will have to guaranteed grab an Ogerpon, which there is a Nest Ball in the discard pile, so that much is guaranteed. But from there, it really becomes a question of, by using this Legacy Star at this point, if you're not grabbing Boss back, you're going to have one Gusting card for the rest of the game in the face of Rolling Iron. Does not sound like a recipe for success whatsoever, Pablo.
Calvin's draws have been very underwhelming in this game 3. We're seeing these games be all over the place, whereas Cali's top decks of those tail dances have been so clutch. Another huge Legacy Star. This tournament has been all about Legacy Star, right? All these mirror matches, the Regidrago dominance. Legacy Star is it one of the best abilities we've seen?
This expansion of Silver Tempest has brought Primal Turbo, Summoning Star, Legacy Star, so many powerful abilities in the Pokemon TCG. I just keep getting flashbacks to this finals match from Peoria where the same thing happened to Calvin that game 3, or that second game just did not have pieces. What is this? Legacy Star gets rid of the Prime Catcher, the second Super Rod. Does have Prime Catcher, so at minimum could choose to take 2 prize cards, but needs to grab the Ogerpon as well. So if you take the Prime Catcher, are we really going to see no Ogerpon come down into play? There's no way for Cal to attack in the spot. We might see the only 2 Gusting cards available get put into the hand. And now what is the play here for Calvin? Is going to go ahead and bring this Regidrago up. We did see Cali commit the switch the previous turn, and it looks like it's just going to be getting aggressive. Has the combo, though. Prime Catcher plus the boss's orders means that Calvin will expand all of these resources, but it will be at the price of getting to knock out this Regidrago V-Star. By putting it on the bench, it removes that Rolling Iron. What a play here from Calvin.
This is the definition of going all in. You take down everything from your opponent. And will Cali be punished here for playing a little too conservatively last turn? With Executor, you take down the Fezandipity, you remove the energy available as well to be energy switched, right? So that coin flip could have been so huge, and we might see Cali take a more passive approach. Now, you know your opponent's setup is quite weak at this point in time, right? They might not even be able to get an attack off this upcoming turn. So you're still in a decent spot, assuming Calvin doesn't find Ogerpon attach, energy switch attach.
Oh, but hold on. Let's not count Cali out of this yet. There's still another energy switch left in the deck. There's still one more remaining. If Cali can find an energy switch, can copy this Giratina's Lost Impact and throw the tempo.
Energy switch.
And there's the energy switch, but I don't know if there's another Ogerpon. Let's not forget the 2 Ogerpon are still in the prize cards.
Oh yeah, we can't attack this
and
turn.
There's no way this way to attack because both those Ogerpon are prized. No matter how how many cards you draw, there's just not going to be an option at this point. And now, what do you do here if you're Cali? This Regidrago is stuck in the active spot and means Calvin is just an energy switch and an attachment away from clearing the board again of all your energies and your attacker.
Calvin has everything in hand already. Off the prizes, he got the Ogre Pawn and a Grass, has an energy switch as well. So Calvin might take a huge lead, an insurmountable lead, I would say.
Cali just looking at the cards at hand saying, is there anything I can do? Just gonna have to pass the turn over, and you see Calvin start to jitter a little bit, sees he has everything, the energy for the teal dance, can draw the card, has the attachment for turn, and the energy switch will take another huge 2-prize turn, and yet again removing the only attacking threat on Cali's side.
You can see Calvin shaking. He doesn't believe this is gonna Iono. Try to find perhaps the other Ogre Pawn available in the deck. If you can teal dance with that, that will really put a lot of pressure off from that Regidrago and allow you to attack in back-to-back turns. So a huge 4 cards here for Calvin. We're not out of the woods yet. We don't find any sort of help, but actually we find Earthen Vessel and Energy Switch. All you need to attack next turn yet again.
See that Earthen Vessel get played in this sit position, so grabbing Fire and Grass, potentially preparing for the following turn for another Lost Impact. It is super costly to use 3 Lost Impact attacks throughout the game, but when you're clearing your opponent of these Regidrago V, it's worth sending those energies to the Lost Zone.
Now, there are definitely no more ghosting effects for Calvin, right? Both bosses and the Prime Catcher are in the discard pile, so Cali will definitely have a chill turn with that Cleffa being available to grasping draw, perhaps establish some things on the bench, but they're also very low on resources, and they're staring down a fully powered up Regidrago right now. It's going to put Calvin 1 knockout away, essentially, from becoming the Toronto Regional Champion.
The big piece still missing, though, is something like Gudra V-Star in Calvin's discard pile. Yes, you'd be, out of gusting cards, but if you just continuously attack and preserve your Pokemon with as big of a lead that's about to happen at this point, that could be enough. Resources, though, we've got to keep our eye on that. Calvin's down not only all of his gusting cards, but all but one of his recovery cards, down both the Super Rod, only has that one superior energy retrieval left in the deck. Besides that, we could start to see some resources get lacked. There it is, another Lost Impact attack, just deciding which energy to send to the Lost Zone. Whatever it is, though, Calvin will be 2 prize cards away from securing himself a win in a regional championship.
Now, hold off a minute. Calvin only plays 9 energy, right? 7 grass and 2 fire. If he Lost Zones these 2, he has the other 2 in his hand, right? Still has a superior energy retrieval left. However, that's not good enough to, I guess you can recover. Never mind. I was going to say something silly.
So here it is.
Lost Impact.
4 to the Lost Zone total. Cal Connor, 2 prize cards away. But if this series has showed us anything, I am not going to write anything off yet. Cali is still in a position where over time, as it stands right now, Cali does have more resources than Calvin Connor does. At a bigger price deficit, of course, just the 200 damage currently on this Pheasantipity, but it could set up later down the line for a big 4-prize turn to swing things back into their favor. A Super Rod is going to be a great way to start things off, though, putting these Pokemon and energy cards back into the deck.
Very clutch here to be able to establish yet another Regidrago. So many ghosting, all the ghosting effects in Cali's hand, just not very useful right about now, but there is a universe where Calvin could be starved out of energy and perhaps get something trapped if he overbenches with a Radiant Charizard or something along those lines. So that opening is still available, but obviously he'll be very aware of that as well.
Completely different game 3. I have no idea what's going to happen here. It is truly still anybody's game. Let's not forget Flip the Script. Going to get some great value this turn. Drawing Cali even more cards. I think is just considering, is it worth doing that at this point? We're going to see Teal Dance be used first to draw a card. It is a Nest Ball. But yeah, if you're Cali here, I don't think there's ever a world where you can play this research just because getting rid of all those gusting cards will not give you a way back into a matchup, especially being down this many prizes.
Gonna fail this Nest Ball. Thought about benching that Squawkabilly, but you are at the mercy of another Teal Dance attach and energy switch, which is a lot, but it's exactly the cards that Calvin has. They know he has the 2 energies, but they don't know exactly what else. As we see a bunch of energies being drawn here, another Nest Ball that can be utilized so we can Grasping Draw for a couple more resources. Not too bad. We're just going to fail.
And really, it's just that 2 Teal Mask Ogerpon that have been detrimental to both players, but especially to Cali on that previous turn. Found the energy switch, but just not having access to that made everything just so different in a spot like this. Is actually just going to go and play the boss's orders onto Pheasantipity, so making it a little bit more difficult for Calvin to attack. Actually going to go after the Teal Mask Ogerpon. I think I like this just a little bit better in this spot.
Yeah, I really like that. Sure, Ogerpon can retreat itself, but this is trying to put even more pressure on Calvin's resources and trying to buy even more time.
And look at this hand, just a bunch of energy cards and a Professor's Research. And this begs the question here, if you're Calvin, do you just commit to powering this Regidrago on the bench? As it stands right now, there's no way for this Teal Mask Ogerpon to retreat. And that could spell disaster, as we've seen Prime Catcher and Boss going after these Pokemon on the bench be the key strategy that has allowed both these players to gain an edge in this matchup. And Cali's going to keep both of those Gusting cards in hand, as Professor's Research will be the card for turn. This could be scary, though, Pablo.
There's the switch, though. There's a switch available, but no Rolling Iron. So
no Rolling Iron, but let's not forget Swinging Speen could mean that a tails flip wouldn't get in the way. So Calvin's got a choice here to make. Switch plus Rolling Iron, but there's no Rolling Iron found. Yeah. So what do you do in this spot? Do you give your opponent credit to having the Gusting card, or do you not leave this Ogerpon active and pass, or do you take the 50-50 to win a regional championship?
I think you have to go for the 50-50. If Cali does have the other Gusting effect, I think you're out of resources. We see, we're bluffing the switch. We're thinking about it. We're going to see the Mew. All right, so we're not fully committing yet.
It's just making me nervous for going into the Mew EX. This could be the biggest coin flip of the year. We thought we saw it with NAIC last year on the Confusion coin flip. You seem to just be part of all these big flipping moments.
Yeah.
And you see Cali's, he's in the tank here. He's thinking, do I go for this? I have such an advantage. Could my greediness get me over this play? Are we going to see this? We're going to see Swinging Speed.
Oh my God.
Tails. Calvin will win the game. Heads, a whole new narrative. What's the flip? Tails. Knocks out the Pheasantipity. Cal Cutter on the coin flip wins the Toronto Regional Championships.
What did we just watch? Ethan Swinging Speed. We thought it was going to happen earlier. Maybe Cali could have used it as well earlier on to deny that Regidrago tried